Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm just going to be sharing briefly my thoughts on what I read for the month of August. So this is my August wrap up. Now, start off, if you've already watched my wrap up for July or my Wallflowers video by Lisa Kleypas, you'll know I started my August with Scandal in Spring by Lisa Kleypas. This is the fourth and final book of her Wallflower series, which I enjoyed. If you haven't seen my video already about the Wallflower series, feel free to check that out. You'll get a more in-depth discussion of my thoughts. But this was my third favorite from the series, and it's mainly about Matthew and Daisy. Daisy is the second eldest daughter of her family, American family, and they went to Europe to have the daughters marry up in English society because no one would marry them back home, or no one worthy anyway. So they come to Europe, but Daisy, after years and multiple seasons in the parish, she doesn't find anyone, and there's no proposals coming her way that she is interested in. So her father declares that she needs to marry by this month, or he's going to marry her off to Matthew. And Matthew is someone she had despised in her youth, or at least when they were still in America. And Matthew comes over thinking it's for the business. He had always worked with Daisy's father, the Bowman's family industry, and he has his own history. There is this idea of, unrequited love on his part. There's false identity. There's that deception going on. Then, this growing attraction. This is my third favorite from the Wallflower series. You'll understand more why if you watched my video about that series, so feel free to check that out for a more in-depth discussion. Next, I read Reflections by Elizabeth Lim, and this, as you may tell by the cover, is about Mulan. It's a retelling, and she goes to the underworld. In this scenario, instead of her being attacked by Shan Yu, Shang gets in front of her and takes the blow himself, which proves to be fatal. So, to prevent Shang from passing away, she decides to go to the underworld and save his soul, and the plot ensues from there. Not gonna lie, this is obviously a young adult book and a retelling about Disney princess Mulan. There is definitely this overlap of Chinese mythology and the underworld, spiritual belief, which I enjoyed. However, I will say I'm probably too old to read this, or I'm just not in the mood for this type of book right now. For a young adult, I only gave it 3 stars. It was average read for me, but as someone who enjoys romance and seeing budding love, even if it's young love, puppy love, I would have enjoyed more of that. And there wasn't enough of it in here for me. I would have enjoyed more time with Shang and Mulan. Even if, again, for a young adult, I know you can't get a lot of that, but you can still make it cute in here. And it was only a little bit, and just towards the end. It's only supposed to take place within, I believe, 24 hours, if that. And then Shang could potentially go to the underworld, and of course she saves him. It's, again, a Disney retelling. They're not going to have it end badly. But it only takes place in a day, and before they return to the Emperor, you only see the bits between them beating the Huns in Tungshao Pass, which is where the snow was. If you saw the movie, you'll understand what I mean. And that's supposed to take place that night, before they return to the Emperor of China. But again, this was because, with that in mind, because it took place all in the night, I felt like it was dragged out. It could have been going on a little longer, or over a longer period of time. I would have liked to see more relation between Shang and Mulan, but if we are to consider, again, the age range it's intended for and the audience it is intended for, it did do its part. We see a strong hero, or heroine in her case. So, yeah, definitely check this out if that is your niche. Next, of the book haul that I got at my local thrift shop a few weeks ago, I decided to start with Winsong, and this is by Judith E. French. This is mainly about a girl who is the illegitimate daughter of someone in rank. I forget exactly what it was, but the plot did pique my interest. The If not the most of the books that I hauled at in that video, this one piqued my interest the most. So it's mainly about Lena, who is fleeing Ireland with the Irish rebel Rory Desmond, and in her youth, she was, I believe, 11 or 12 when she stumbled upon him on her way home, and he had been shot by guards of something. They're supposed to be Irish people. So, there's that complication there. And she takes care of him, and in her youth, she is smitten with him. She enjoys his appearance. She is attracted to him as a young girl. She's crushing on him, right? But then years later, as the illegitimate daughter, her mother had already passed away, but even when she was alive, she was in an abusive household where her mother was abused by her stepfather, and then her stepbrother would be very manipulative toward her. Now, I'm going to say that this, aside from the deceptions, there's also attempted rape in here. There's captured by Indians or Native Americans, so there's this bigoted idea within that, and dated terms relating to Native Americans. There's this heavy hand on religious belief, so her not wanting to do things out of wedlock, which again, someone can be understanding towards. I grew up within a similar household, so I get it, but it felt very heavy-handed in here, to the point where I was kind of like, it sounds a little annoying, even though, you're attracted to this person, you're going to be with them, why do you feel so good? But I digress. It was okay. I mean, 3-star read. This was published in, let's see, I know it was the 80s. 1988 this was published. Now, there were times for me that it was difficult to put this down, but then there were a lot of times when it would just get really dragged out in the story plot, when Rory was captured and Lena needed to go find him, and then she left her son. But they already had a child. This is supposed to take place years into their marriage. Like, they get married within the first quarter of the book, first quarter of the book, and then after having their child, Rory continues to distance himself because he was led to believe he was marrying her legitimate sister, but her sister really wanted to be, what is it? A woman of God, a nun, or something along those lines. I believe she wanted to be a nun. So she fled that way, and Lena took her place. She's the one who came up with the idea, and she leads with that deception for a longer period of time until she finally confesses to Rory after she's already pregnant, after her stepbrother makes an appearance. And I know I just threw some of the plot at you, but I mean, that bit only lasts maybe half of the book, maybe, and then the second half, it's mainly her chasing after Rory, who was captured by Native Americans, and I did not appreciate that depiction in here. So again, 3 stars for Winsong. Now, the next two I'm very excited to share would be Beverly Jenkins' Always and Forever and Chance at Love. Now, these books are connected. And I don't want to go too far into it because I still need to read a couple more books, I think, that are related to these. But I will say, Always and Forever was a 5-star read for me. And I was excited because I realized Jackson Blake is related to another character in another of her books. And again, I'm not going to say everything that I realized about this book, but all in all, aside from the overlap with a couple of her other standalones, this book is close proximity. Grace Atwood, she is a banker and she doesn't have her parents anymore, but we have her cool aunties in here who were named after flowers. I know, random facts, but I just enjoyed the presence of her aunts in here, as well as Jackson being this man who used to be in law enforcement, but because of bigoted ideas and the murder of her father and him being stripped of his sheriff's star, he is now on the run and, trying to protect himself from his past as well as seek vengeance for his father who had been murdered by the white man's hate, okay? And when they meet, Grace is trying to employ him to be, their guide on their road trip to, was it, I believe, Kansas? So, yes, Kansas City. And she was going to be the leader of mail order brides because her cousin had asked her to bring about 30 women with her to Kansas City to marry the eligible men because women were very scarce in that time. Mail order brides were, understandable at the time, although not fully accepted. And we get more of a glimpse of that in the next book I'll talk about. But yes, this is mainly about Jackson and Grace. I really enjoy this because Grace is a strong heroine and Jackson does not hate on her for that. If anything, they kind of had this, rough first impression together because she finds him or seeks him out at a night house, I'll say that, and assumes that she is a lady of the night in the dark because she kind of went into his room when he was asleep thinking that, she could seek him out and propose this job position to him, but he mistakes her for a woman that he visited often. That's all I'm going to say. And that's how they first meet. And this is forced proximity, their long road trip. He's, trying to teach the women how to handle the horses, the cattle, and take care of themselves, pin up tents. Grace also had a fiance who left her at the altar, so she's kind of weary about that, and finding new love with Jackson. And then Jackson, on his part, again with his father being murdered, he has his own on his own part he seeks vengeance and redemption for himself because he wants his honor restored that was taken away by the people who had killed his father, and he was blamed for murdering a white man, which he is falsely accused, obviously. But yes, definitely enjoyed this. Beverly Jenkins. So check this out if you haven't already. So with that being said, one of the side characters featured in Always and Forever is the leading heroine of A Chance at Love. Now, Lorelai Winters, she was, intended to be a mail order bride, but she decides not to and just tagged along on their trip to Kansas City and did intend to leave, but then she ends up meeting these two little girls. And I love this because that, aside from the fact that she was my favorite side character from Always and Forever, she had her own history. She was an experienced woman. She knew what she wanted, but she knew what was expected of her as well, but she didn't conform, right? So I enjoyed that aspect about Lorelai. And her love interest was Jake Reed. Now, Jake, he is the uncle of two nieces whose mother had passed away and their father never seemed to be in the picture. So he was kind of their only living relative left, aside from, I believe, I believe someone else was related. I can't recall specifics, but I'll get more into it when I do a video on, again, the books that are connected, but no one's really talking about for Beverly Jenkins. So, yes, again, this is a 5-star read for me. I can see why some people aren't fully satisfied with Jake because, he wasn't fully, I guess, he was kind of put off by Lorelai's history, but she taught him things. That's all I'm going to say for now, because I'll get more into it when I get into that video. Again, look forward to this. After that, I continued again with Beverly Jenkins' Breathless. Now, this is the second book in her Old West trilogy. I will be featuring a video about the Old West series as well. And this is about Portia. She is the eldest between herself and her sister Reagan. Now, if you've read, or if you haven't read, Forbidden, which is the first book of the Old West series, that is about Eddie Carmichael and Ryan Fontaine. Now, in that book, we get this introduction to Portia and Reagan as children. So, after the completion of Ryan and Eddie's love story, they take in Portia and Reagan, whose mother was a whore, and she ends up basically disowning them and sending them away to be raised by their aunt Eddie, who again is introduced in Forbidden, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But this is about Portia, and her love interest is, I believe, Kent. I want to say Kent. Yes, Kent Randolph. And I don't know, this was definitely a slow burn for me. I mean, I still gave it 4 stars, but I would have enjoyed more development between the characters. However, there are these times of, Kent wanting to teach Portia things, but Portia isn't, fully ready yet. And I think it was just cute. It was a cute read, and I don't want to touch too much on it because, again, I'm going to be doing a separate video about the Old West trilogy, so look forward to that. But again, this is about Portia and Kent. This is years later. They did meet before when she was 12 and he was 18, and this is supposed to take place, I believe, 15 years later, and this is their love story. So definitely check that out. Next, I read Tempest, and this is the third and final book of the Old West trilogy. Again, this is about Reagan, and she did decide to be a mail order bride, and she signs up to be the mail order bride of Dr. Colton Lee. He has a daughter. His wife had died in childbirth, and his daughter is very quiet and not as, not as outgoing as the twins from the previous book, A Chance at Love by Beverly Jenkins, but I definitely had similar vibes with that book. Could be because they take place around the same time period. It could be because the mail order bride situation. It could be the fact that children were involved. But I will say, although this book was enjoyable, the ending felt a little flat for me. I did give this 3 stars. It was nice to see the family reunion, but again, this wasn't something that lived up to my expectations for the trilogy. But again, with that being said, can there really be that many expectations, because we hardly see people of color in historical books? So if you enjoy slow burn, I think this is definitely for you. Me personally, I found that I enjoyed the Destiny trilogy more, but this was still a fair read. Like, I'm not by any means disappointed. I just felt it was a little short, if that. It wasn't overwhelming, it wasn't all consuming, but I still had the urge to finish it. and I was pleased by the ending. You still get to see the family reunion at the end. Colton is a doctor, and she's kind of witty with her banter, but again, not as witty as I've seen in other Beverly Jenkins books. But again, I'm making my way through her historical backlist, so we'll see. But look forward to my trilogy video about, again, the Old West. So, and lastly, for my August read, I read The Princess Stakes. Now, if you haven't read it yet, um, the things that piqued my interest about this book were the fact that it's a second chance romance. It's about a biracial princess. It's about them overcoming odds because, of course, in a historical setting, they're going to put an HEA at the end, happily ever after. That is what we want all the time with historical romances. We don't expect it to carry over into other books, or at least not often. If ever, it's going to just be about another couple and their story is concluded in their own story, right? Now, with that being said, I will say this book did not live up to my expectations. It could have been better, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been. And I'm only going to say that much because I already did a video of my thoughts about this. So if you are interested, feel free to look forward to that. But again, this could have been better, but it also could have been worse. And the second book that follows The Princess Stakes, titled The Rule of Heiresses, which is about the hero's sister from this book. That's coming out in October 2021, so feel free to check that out. I believe it's the 26th of October. So we'll see if it is that much better from this. But again, I gave this 3 stars, so I mean, take that as you will. But again, you'll see a full review, and I ranted for about 20 minutes. So that concludes my reads for the month of August 2021. If you're interested in any of my thoughts, feel free to comment down below. I'm happy to respond. And, have a healthy conversation because, again, these are all fictitious books, but they do have some level of realism where people try to add their own facts into it, which can be very educational. But, again, what do we expect to read in 2021? What do we expect publishers to see? I would hope that they push for more diversity and more realism, but also a hint of, struggle and perseverance. The key point for me is perseverance and still understanding how it was back then. Like, of course, we want to have the progressive ideas be present, but keep in mind when the story is supposed to take place. So there's still going to be this level of restriction of racism that is still present today, but it was definitely, I don't want to say more, but different, more distorted than what we're used to back then. That's what I'm going to say. I'm not going to say it was worse. I'm not going to say it was better back then, but it was definitely different from how it is today. People can be more subtle now. People can be more violent now. People can be more closeted haters. There's so many things I could rant about, but that concludes my reads. So again, feel free to comment down your thoughts. I do have a Goodreads page if you wish to check that out. I may add it in the future to the description box below. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.